Hello and welcome to another New Degree Press book launch. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you may be. But today is a special launch with Jeanne Godfroy, whose book just came out, Midgard, in the last week or two, and very excited to be a part of the journey with her tonight. I'm your host, John Saunders, an executive leadership coach, podcast host, and author coach with book publisher New Degree Press, or NDP, a community-owned publisher. NDP is part of Manuscripts Inc. And this past year, Manuscripts Inc. ranked 293rd on the Inc. 5000 list, and this is the fastest growing privately held companies in America, and has now published books on 6 continents. This success has been driven by a mission to empower all to tell their stories. And the program has now published over 1,500 authors and counting. The next author cohort, if you want to write your book, starts actually this week. And you certainly can start a week or two late if you'd like and catch up on the recordings. But if you're ready to write your book, jump on in here. We're ready to have you. Before we get started, please do us a favor, because we're going to use the chat throughout to give away a few prizes and ask questions. Please type in where you're calling in from or joining us from in the chat. We'd love to see where you're all joining in, and we want to make sure that the chat works as well. And as I said, we'll use it throughout. Jeanne has a number of prizes from Birch Tree Books in Leesburg, Virginia. Is that where it is?
That is correct.
She'll be giving away gift cards, and then at the end, so $25 gift cards throughout, and a $100 one at the end, along with a bottle of Petite Verdot from Casanel Vineyards in Virginia. But as I said, I'm John Saunders. I spent over 23 years on Wall Street as a sales executive and leader before I became an author and a coach. And I've had the great privilege to meet and work with Jeanne early in her author journey, along with hosting her on the podcast that I host, the creator community from New Degree Press. Her episode is going to be coming out later this October at the creator community on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you consume your podcasts. It was the first ever panel episode with a feature on legacy, which is a really great theme from Jeanne's book and the other authors that we had on the show that particular episode. We're also going to hear from Jeanne's special guest tonight, Mary Link, who's got a very unique perspective on the journey that Jeanne went through, and learn about that from her perspective. But today, it is my honor to host Jeanne Godfroy in her book launch. Just a little bit about Jeanne. For those of you who may not know her, she's a mother, a wife, academic, and combat veteran who has dabbled in the fields of history, international relations, counterinsurgency, and information technology. The genesis of Midgard, her new book, was her love for fiction and science fiction in particular, and her growing concern about mankind's poor stewardship of its own habitat. It is the first in what she intends to be a series of books, novels about how society might respond once it realizes the devastating impacts of the willful decisions on the environment. So really awesome. We should add snowboarder to the list. Jeanne's also a snowboarder, which is awesome, as is her husband, I just found out. But as I said, as we ask questions, we're going to ask several throughout the show. Please be sure to put them in the chat. The chat is already filling up here, Jeanne. Look at this. Oh, I love it.
I see that.
People aren't waiting.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Julie Cooper. Hello. Lacey Washington. It's Brian Scott. Reno, Nevada is CS Cage 1. Welcome. Purcellville, Virginia. Shane Johnson. Pre-retired from Reno, Nevada. Alan Zatlow, Tampa, Florida. Hope you're okay down there, and all your family and friends are, Alan. From the storm, Sterling, Virginia. Kim Compton. Maureen Grace from Reno, Nevada. I've got a great group here tonight. John Sehner from Santa Barbara, Sehner from California. Mm-hmm. Linda Sehner has a nice note for you here. Can't wait to hear your sweet voice. Oh, very nice, Linda. Very nice. Jeffrey Shannon from Athens, Georgia. Boy, they're still coming in. David Nash, the Nashes from Hamilton, Virginia. Chris Bowell, Warrenton, Virginia. I've got a friend grew up in Warrenton. The Thorsons, if you know them, Christopher. Andy Whitford from West Point. John Salvetti from Winchester. Oh my gosh, so many people jumping in here. So great to see all you. Please continue to put your names in the chat. Sometimes they filter in a little bit slowly, but really appreciate it. Great to see everyone from literally just about every time zone in the US here. That is fantastic. So before we dive in here, we're going to do our first question just for fun and get everybody fired up here to keep using the chat and give away our first prize. Who can tell me with the answer to this question? And let me pull up Jeanne's first question here. Which environmentally conscious charity is Jeanne donating 10% of her book's proceeds to A, protect our world, B, protect our wombats, C, protect our winters, or D, protect our whales. So put A, B, C, or D in the chat, and the first person who gets it right, Jeanne has a nice prize for. Let's see how we did here. C, Kim Compton.
Kim Compton.
Well done. Well done, Miss Compton. Protectourwinters.org. That is fantastic. So, Jeanne, hopefully we can capture that name there. Excuse me.
I got it.
Perfect.
And I just want to highlight that. So the donations are going to protect our winters. One of the themes of the book has to deal with how mankind is handling its habitat. I learned to snowboard because my husband used to be a professional snowboarder. It is a passion of his. And Protect Our Winters seeks to help preserve winter environments and outdoor conservation projects and supporting legislation at the state, local, and federal level to help protect those habitats so that we can all enjoy the outdoor winter weather. So that's for my husband, Scott, but yes, 10% of the proceeds will go to Protect Our Winters.
That is awesome. Well done, Kim Compton. Oh, you know what? Elsa Bullard actually beat her to the punch. I apologize, but she actually typed out the whole answer. I was looking for the letter C. So maybe there's two.
I think there's two winners on that one.
Maybe there's an ebook to give away or another winner there. My apologies. I missed that.
No problem.
Elsa, but also did not follow directions, Elsa. I'm just going to put it out there.
Good job, Kim and Elsa. Good job.
Well done. Well done. So let's move into the questions and get to know a little bit more about Jeanne and her journey. So first of all, Jeanne, how does it feel to have a book published and on Amazon and wherever you buy books online? So incredible.
It's a little surreal, to be honest. It's something I dreamed of writing a fiction book long ago, and I kind of shoved that dream behind me thinking, oh, I can't ever do anything with it. It's never going to go anywhere. You know, nobody except for exceptional people become published authors. But thanks to Eric Koster and a number of other people who've helped me along the way at the Creator Institute and at New Degree Press and my wonderful author community that helped support not only my pre-sales campaign, but provided me a lot of feedback on the book, provided me a lot of moral support and encouragement along the way. I am now a published author. And honestly, John, it did not feel real until I started getting feedback from some of the people who'd actually read the book. Even holding it in my hand didn't feel real. It was when I started getting the texts and the emails and seeing the reviews that people wrote. And for the few people that have that are around me at the office or in the neighborhood, getting their feedback has been incredible. And that so I'm very grateful for that.
What has been, give us a nugget of some of this feedback you've been getting. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. I don't think she's here tonight, but Margie Majors, who's one of the first people who really encouraged me to write a book. She does hypnotherapy and counseling and coaching out in Las Vegas. She wrote me this extremely long text away, but she said, "I'm not surprised you wrote it because you're a badass." And that I found was amazing. And she also added that you could have knocked me over with a feather to find my name in the acknowledgments. I hope all of you have read the acknowledgments and read the dedication, because there were so many people to thank along these process. And I love hearing that people have read those pieces of the book.
A badass. I'm going to have to say I agree, Jeanne. I'm just going to put it out there. I want to read another review that Sandra Bankston put on Amazon, which I thought was awesome. Midgard is set in the year 2154 on our planet, which has been decimated by abuses, a place where survival is a struggle, sci-fi, mystery, love story, horror, and character study. Somehow the authors combined these three genres into a terrific read. Hope the next book comes out quickly. I'm not going to read the next part because that's one of our questions, but that is fantastic. Sandra Bankston. Thank you, Sandra, for that great review. So Jeanne, tell our listeners a little bit about what the author journey was like for you. That's always fun, right? You have to, right? You're a working professional. You had to fit this thing into your life. What was that journey like for you?
Well, I'll try to tell the story without giving away the question that's coming up, because I know that question is coming up. But I had been writing for years. And, you know, I think in high school and in college, both versions of college that I went to, I did a lot of writing, and it was one of those things that I fell into naturally. But it was mostly academic writing, and it was pretty dry. For the most part. And I realized that the stories, the materials that I enjoyed reading the most either were written with a story in mind, the nonfiction side of the house, and that was a lot of history, to be honest. and or they were fictional stories. And I really enjoyed historical fiction and science fiction because both of those genres teach you something in the course of telling you a story. I again, fast forward a number of years, and I left the Army. I was a new mom, and I'd only been married for a short while, and my whole identity had changed, right? I wasn't just the single Army officer out doing deployments anymore. I wasn't just this academic writing these academic journals anymore. I was this whole other person. And I felt kind of stuck and sad. And through coaching from Clarity on Fire, great ladies there, they unfortunately could not make it here tonight, and through family and friends, I was linked up with the Creator Institute, which is run by this great guy named Eric Koster. You have to interview with him before he'll even let you in the program. And in the course of talking to him, I really realized this is something I wanted to do. I wanted to take a policy issue, and instead of writing about it from an academic perspective, use the medium of a story to maybe get people interested in learning more about how we're taking care of our environment and how we're not taking care of our environment. So that was the genesis of Midgard. And it's been, I think I started with the Creator. I started writing in October of 2020. I started working with the Creator Institute in June of 2021, and that helped me give more structure to my story. And helped my developmental editor, Tom Toner, really helped me do things like write dialogue and organize a story and do a plot and do character development. And when my manuscript got picked up by New Degree Press, my amazing editor, Alan Zatkow, who I think is here tonight, and thank you, Alan, for being here tonight, really helped fine-tune not only those skills, but he helped me fine-tune how to think as a writer and think creatively and help build the story from the inside out instead of the outside in. So between him and the other folks at New Degree Press, we turned the story into a book. And then my author community, the people that supported me in my pre-sale campaign and my beta readers, they helped bring that book to fruition. So that is the full journey. And like I said in my author's note, if it takes a village to raise a child, it definitely takes at least a Hamlet to write a book. And I am incredibly grateful to all those members of the Midgard Hamlet that helped me along the way.
Isn't it fascinating? I don't think I ever read the acknowledgments for a book until I wrote my own, and then realized, oh my gosh, I have to write this. What do you put in it? So I started to look at a bunch of others to kind of see how to put it together. And now I always read them, which is fascinating. And it's amazing how many people get thanked in the back of books, from the most famous authors to newer authors as well.
Well, I noticed that my acknowledgement section is like 3 or 4 pages long in the book too. And that speaks to the amount of people that helped bring this into bring their creation to life. So to me, that's pretty humbling and at the same time very inspiring.
And a lot of those folks were from the pre-sale, were they not?
Yep, a lot of them were from the pre-sale, but a lot of the people were the folks that encourage, my teachers, my coaches, my mentors, my friends that have always seen this other side of me, that I had this creative side that I wasn't really using in my day-to-day life or career, who encouraged me to pursue that and look at that and listen to my instincts and make this thing happen.
That is incredible. And I love, by the way, for those who are wondering, pre-sale. So about 5 months before your book gets published, you're coached through a pre-sale campaign, which is done virtually on a website. And it affords you the luxury of, in most cases, fully financing the cost of publishing your book, and sometimes even having a few extra dollars left over for marketing, which often happens as well. So that is something good to know.
And I'm now taking those extra dollars and investing them in either Protect Our Winters or in prizes for my author community at events like this.
Very nice. So, Jeanne, Midgard, let's get a little bit more into that. What do you want people to know about your book?
Wow. So it's about a number of things, but there's 2 overriding themes. One is one of the what if questions is, what happens if the world can't get itself together, if human society can't get itself together and try to stop the degradation of our environment? I think climate change is a very divisive term. Global warming is a very divisive term for, for good reasons. But I think one thing we can all agree on is that we could be better stewards of our own personal resources, whether that's our money, our material goods, or other assets. but we can also be better stewards of our planet's resources as well. We can make sure we're not consuming consuming our own habitat out of existence. So that was one of the what ifs. What happens if we don't take care of our planet in 100 years? What happens for our children, our grandchildren? And frankly, the main character is based off of somebody who could be a descendant of mine. It could be my grandson or my great-great-grandson, for example. And so that's one of the themes. The other theme, which is less obvious, is about privilege, not on the political side of the house, but every society has its tribes, it has its castes, it has its haves and its have-nots. In this society, how you define who gets access to the types of programs that will allow you to be able to survive is a caste system of its time. And so those are some of the underlying lessons there. Is like, being talented doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the opportunity to share that talent with the world or share that capability with the world. So the underlying theme is that in the book as well.
And certainly aligned very strongly with the mission of this organization to really diversify and disrupt the publishing industry, which 1,500 authors strong very much has done so far.
I very much agree. And I hope to pass on the message that, the third, it's not the theme of the book, but one of my own personal themes is I know there's a lot of people out there who have spoken to me since I started this journey about how they too would like to write a book. And I just want to be able to show them, like, not only is it possible, it's well within your reach. And there are a number of ways you can do it, but this is one incredible way to be able to do it.
In 12 months, have it in your hands, a little under 12 months. It's hard to believe. So let's focus a little bit more on the mission, the why here. Jeanne, what was your big inspiration? I know, right, a fan of snowboarding and protecting the snow, but what was your bigger mission here?
So I think if I were to think back, one of the pivotal experiences that I had that led me to pick this theme in particular was in 2017, when my husband and I joined his cousin and her husband at a vineyard in Sonoma, California. The vineyard was owned by Robert Kamen, who, for those of you who don't know who he is the screenwriter behind The Karate Kid, the London Has Fallen series, the Taken series. So he's an incredibly well-known and very successful screenwriter in Hollywood. Well, we went to the vineyard to be able to taste his wines, which, by the way, are excellent. But as it turned out, he happened to be on the premises that day, and he came out and sat down with us and talked with us for about an hour about a number of topics. It's one of the most fascinating discussions I've ever had with somebody. But one of the themes of his conversation was his vineyard, of course, and his idea of the word stewardship and what it meant to him to be able not only to build the vineyard, but to be able to build the vineyard in a sustainable way, and then be able to pass it on to either his children or somebody else who could be a good steward of that piece of property, that part of the environment. And at the time, I just happened to be reading two other books. One was by Yvon Chouinard, who had founded Patagonia, and it was called Let My People Go Surfing. It was kind of a history of the company, but its theme was about stewardship of the planet and outdoor people. And then the other book I was reading was written by two architects of the Paris 2015 Climate Accords, called The Future We Choose. And it's a fictional version of the future as well, about, okay, here's what happens if we choose to cooperate and, solve these problems and take better care of our habitat, versus a fictional future in which we don't. So all of those combined kind of served as the inspiration for the world that I built in order to tell the story of Midgard.
Wow, that is quite what's the word? A number of things coming together to really make it happen. But that's what's so fun about writing, the creating, right? Many people think of it as an output process, but so much of it is learning and developing your own thinking and refining your thinking. Then, of course, sharing it with a professional editor who gives you feedback and helps fine tune it and keep you on track and give you deadlines, which is fantastic. So what a awesome story, how it all came together for you here. I love that. So now we're going to ask another question here, ladies and gentlemen. So get ready to put the letter in the chat. Elsa, I'm talking to you. uh, in the chat. Let me get the next question here. A bunch of more comments in here. Alan is on the call. I saw him drop a note in the chat. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Robert Sweetman. This is so exciting. John Sainer. Wow.
Hey, Rob.
Love it. Let me grab the next question here. Where did we go here? Here it is. What deep, dark secret did Jeanne blurt out during an icebreaker exercise at a Scrum Master certification course in 2019? A, I love the United States Navy. B, I'm a closeted novelist. C, my deepest desire is to meet the Prince and Princess of Wales. D, I own a private bunker in New Zealand. Let's see. What do we have? A, B, C, or D, ladies and gentlemen? Let's see who jumped in here. How they all just came in. Oh, Kim Compton on it again. B,
Oh my goodness.
I'm a closeted novelist. There she is. Well done, Kim. She is on point tonight, on fire.
Oh my goodness. So now I guess I don't have to like divide the first question. I'll give the first question to Elsa and the second one to Kim. There's a lot of peace on there though, which means that people either read the author's note or they know me. So.
That's awesome. And by the way, the gifts, the gift cards are to Birch Tree Bookstore, birchtreebookstore.com, or bookshop.org is the online store, I guess, for out-of-state orders. Is that right?
That is correct.
So yeah, you can use these gift cards wherever you might be located across the U.S. So Jeanne, a couple other questions for you. How would you say that, we talked a little bit about the learning journey of writing a book, but how would you say that this book has changed you? And what are some of the key things you learned along the way?
Wow. That's a tough question, John. So one of the things I learned is the value of community. And one of the best, I'll back out of that a little bit. One of the best things about this whole experience has been the opportunity to connect and reconnect with people that I've engaged with in the past through the pre-sale campaign, through the post-sale campaign. I've heard from so many people that I had lost touch with over the years or hadn't heard from in a while. And definitely not forgotten about, just hadn't really thought about in a while. And it's been a really good opportunity to re-engage with those communities. My friends and teachers and mentors from high school, from West Point, where I went to school, from Princeton, where I also went to school, people I've met throughout my Army career, and people I've met through my husband or through my other acquaintances. And then I have these amazing communities that I have been in touch with in the places that I've lived. I live in an amazing neighborhood right now with amazing neighbors. So building that community has been an incredible experience.
So cool. And maybe you learned that you could build a community even bigger and more badass than you had anticipated. Is that a fair statement?
Or you don't realize how many people that you've connected with and who have connected with you until you do a project like this.
Right. I remember, I think the record for me, for people, when I was posting about my book and the pre-sale and this kind of thing, someone I hadn't talked to in 20 years found something I put on Facebook and ended up connecting with me and actually ordering my book in the pre-sale, which a couple of copies of it, which was so cool. But plenty of people, 1, 3, 5, 10 years, hadn't talked to them since. But the record was 20, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I reconnected with my best friend from high school, who I have now known for 30 years.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know if she's here tonight, but Alexia, if you're here, you started it all. So.
Well done, Alexia. Elsa clearly needs to be Kim. I'm game, Elsa.
I do think Elsa and Kim have a lot in common. They would really enjoy each other's company, actually.
That's awesome. So they don't actually know each other other than through you. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. Kim, I met through my current job, and Elsa and I are West Point buddies.
Oh, that is too funny. Well, look at that. The community continues to grow and connect. So we are going to jump over to another question here, ladies and gentlemen. Question number 3. Let me pull this up. So get ready, A, B, C, or D. So we know the deep, dark secret. Let's see. Question 3. In Midgard, the Earth's environment is nearly uninhabitable for human life because of poor stewardship, a nuclear holocaust, a catastrophic series of wildfires, a series of non-nuclear global conflicts. What do we think here, ladies and gentlemen?
My political scientist side is definitely evident in the answers I put to that question.
David says, I hope it's D. Let's see, a series of non-nuclear global conflicts.
I think, does Jeff Hannon get the first one? Did Jeff Hannon get it?
He looks like he was the first one to put A up there. Yeah, Jeff.
That is correct. Well, Jeff, thanks for being here. That's awesome.
Well done, Jeff Hannon.
So he is one of my colleagues from the Army, and we first met in Korea 10 years ago, as a matter of fact.
Unbelievable. Now it's become a global book launch here. I love it. So any further thoughts about poor environmental stewardship?
I think I've already touched on those talking points. I was trying not to give away the answer, but of course it was difficult to do. I think, again, I'm trying to stay away from the words climate change and global warming because they're politically divisive. I hope this book can help me find a way to start changing the conversation, at least at the grassroots level, to stewardship, right? And less consumption and more focus on things that actually matter.
I love that. What a great message you have out there. And so speaking of which, Jeanne, when you think about Midgard, what would you say the key messages is for your readers out there? Or did we just hear a bit of it?
I think environmental stewardship is part of it. I think legacy is part of it as well, which will be covered when the podcast episode from NDP airs that features me on the 28th of October. And I think, the ability to see people's talents despite what they look like, where they come from, who their parents are, or any other completely irrelevant factors that don't have any effect on their abilities or their capabilities or their desires or their intentions. I think that is one of the other key messages of the book as well.
Such a great message. And I love that you're really so aware of the fact that, right, we don't want this to be a divisive conversation. You want it to improve. And,
well, I think too, when you give people agency to make their own choices, they tend to take the right choice. They tend to make the right choices. If you tell them what to do, I think a lot of us, self included, our first response is, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be told what to do. I want to figure it out for myself. So, especially in America, where, one of our American values is independence, right? So give people agency, let them do the research and do their homework themselves. I believe that humans will make the right decision.
Amazing. And just for those interested, I did post the Creator Community YouTube link in the chat, so you can grab that if you'd like and check out. So please subscribe to the channel. As we said, Jeanne's episode will be out in a couple of weeks, but season 5 launched today. There's a dozen episodes in this season, and we're really excited about that. We are getting ready to bring Mary Link up here in just a minute, one of Jeanne's friends that was so helpful throughout this journey for her. One other quick question that we wanted to share, I think, with the group before we go on. Which character in the book runs Midgard? Let me drop this one let me add this one to the chat here. Which character in the book runs Midgard? A, B, C, or D? Anton Gage, Stefan Gage, Miranda Richmond, or Steve Hask? Let's see who got it. A, B, C, or D?
It's really for people who've actually read the book.
Julie Cooper.
Julie. All right. Julie is one of the amazing neighbors I referenced earlier in terms of, people I have a great community with. I live in an amazing neighborhood. Julie is one of my amazing neighbors. Very
cool. Thank you, Julie. And boy, she just beat Kathy Letourneau by a hair. Shane Johnson by a hair. John Sainer. Well done, everybody. Thanks for jumping in there. Super fun. Oops, I left her thing up there, didn't I?
That's okay. The point of asking that question was really to get at this idea about mentorship and teaching. I think we all have teachers and mentors that have had positive or negative influences on us overall. I think, and Stefan Gage is very much a human being, and he will have positive and negative influences on the main character if you haven't read the book, or, I am writing the sequel as we speak. So there's more development of that relationship here. I think when I was younger, I made the mistake of putting a lot of my teachers and mentors on pedestals, and then was very disappointed to find out that they were human beings, when in reality, now I can appreciate the fact that they're whole humans and that they still had so many positive things to pass on to me and help me with and grow along the way. So Stefan Gage is kind of a tribute to all the mentors that I've had, good and bad, in my life.
Mentors are such an important part of the world, aren't they? And I know I've had so many great ones in my life that have impacted me just immensely, and it's been really fun to be a mentor and through my school as well. And I'll tell you what, I find like I often learn as much, I think, from them as hopefully they even, well, I bet you more than they oftentimes maybe learn from me, if anything at all. So who knows? But one more question before we bring Mary on, and one last prize to give away before the grand prizes. Last question here, ladies and gentlemen, jump in. Which obstacle does Sam Richmond encounter in the opening chapter? So who's read chapter 1 here so far? The table, the tightrope, the tent, or the tunnel? Let's see. Looks like Marion Grace got that one first.
That's my mom.
Oh, well done, Mom. Well done.
All right, who was the second place winner there? Who was
pre-retired?
That's my Uncle Mark.
Nice. Elsa on point once again.
And Tim Sheehan. All right.
Tim, I think, actually got the answer wrong. Just going to put it out there.
Okay.
He put B, but the next person up, I think, was this gentleman here, Shane Johnson. It was the tunnel, right?
Oh, that's she. Yeah, Shane. Shane is one of my beta readers.
Oh, nice. Good work, Shane.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jeanne, before we bring on Mary to ask her a few questions, where can people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you and the book?
Yes, so there's a few options. My website, which is still very much under construction, but I am starting work on it this week with a virtual assistant, is www.jeannehullgodfroy, all one word.com. I'm going to be posting information about the book there, answering questions, and providing some more ideas about stewardship. The other place you can find me is on Instagram. I am at _Jeanne Hull author. And then on LinkedIn, I'm at Jeanne Hull or Jeanne Godfroy on LinkedIn, but I think Hull will turn up Jeanne Godfroy as well, the way that I did the settings.
And one other thing I'd like to make everyone aware of, I'll mention this a couple times, Midgard is available now wherever you buy books online. And Jeanne is doing a special promotional offer for 99 cents for the ebook for the next week or two. Is that right?
Yep, I decided to. So originally it was just going to be for the month of September, but given that this is my launch week, I'm going to keep that sale on through the end of the week.
Outstanding. Thank you for that great deal. Go out and get Jeanne's book now, and be sure to actually write her review, which is just a really important thing. As you heard, few better ways to inspire an author than to write them a review. Particularly an authentic one that you really want to share about it.
Yeah, please be candid with me. I am working on the sequel, and I can only improve from this point. So your candor is very much appreciated in those reviews.
Awesome. So we've got the website. We know where to get your book, Amazon, wherever you buy books online. Now we're going to bring Mary Link on. Mary Link, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited to brag about Jeanne.
That is amazing. So if you have questions for Mary and or Jeanne, please do start to drop them in the chat. I'll run through a few with Mary, and then we'll open it up the floor. But Mary is just a quick intro. Jeanne, share with me, Mary, mother of 3 boys, 3 cats, 2 dogs, and during the day she's trying to get work done as a visualization engineer in between managing her household. Is that a fair description?
That's fair. Yep, that's about right.
Awesome. Well, Mary, you had a pretty unique perspective on Jeanne's journey, I understand. We were hoping we'd get a little bit of your take on it, on what was like watching the production of a book through Jeanne's eyes and through Jeanne's journey.
It was fascinating. So I was working really closely with Jeanne on a project at work throughout the majority, or at least the beginning phases of her writing this book. And I was blown away by, I'm always blown away by Jeanne's work ethic. Anybody that knows her knows that she's a total workhorse. She's not afraid to take on any project. So this, I'm sure, doesn't come as a shock to anybody that she knocked out a novel in less than a year with her full-time job and family and everything else going on. So it was really cool to watch her take this on in addition to all those other things. And I know the work that she put in. I saw all the late nights, and, we would wrap up a long day of meetings and hard work in our job. And then she'd go and start reading and editing for another couple hours on top of that. And I don't know how she has the stamina, but she's a superhero.
Jeanne, how did you pull it off?
So, the people that really bore the brunt of that were my husband and son. So I definitely, if I haven't already thanked them enough in the acknowledgments, I can't thank them enough for letting me donate my nights and weekends to this. But I think when it's something you really care about, that you really believe in, no matter how hard it is, you can find time and you can create time to do it. I did, as Mary noted, though, I made a very, IT Cadre, my employer, is amazing, and they've been very supportive throughout this. I did draw a pretty clear line between work and my passion project. So yes, nights and weekends were mostly where I ended up working on the book.
And of course, you learned that famous phrase, right? I'm on a deadline with my publisher. And
I'm on a deadline with my publisher. Yeah. And when people ask me, when I worked in writing, I told them I used the machine gun burst method. For all the veterans on the line, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm like, okay, I've got 20 minutes, time to write. Oh, I've got 15 minutes here. It's time to write. And Mary got to see that from time to time as well.
Yeah, lunch breaks, after work hours, lots of late evenings.
Yep.
Now having worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of authors, I love the way you described it, Jeanne. I'm gonna articulate it just a touch more from what I've seen so many times. Is once you get there's a certain stage people get to in their books as they're writing them. It starts out, it's kind of hard. It's new muscle. Oftentimes we're exercising to write a book as an author, as opposed to maybe how we learned how to write in college or high school or what have you. And you hit this turning point where suddenly it just becomes almost like an addiction. And if I found myself, when I was writing my book, if I ever sat down on the couch during the year I wrote my book, I was thinking, why am I not writing right now? I should be writing right now. And, I've made about 3 minutes on the couch and run back in, because I love to do it. And that once you get sort of greater clarity on the book, it just, you can't keep away from it. So love that. A couple more questions for Mary. Please do throw the questions in the chat. Those of you joining us online. Mary, what surprised you about the author's journey from seeing it through Jeanne's eyes, through Jeanne's journey?
Well, a couple things. The first I touched on already was, I guess when I think of authors writing a novel, it's their job. Like they can dedicate their whole lives to sitting down, renting a cabin out in Vermont and focusing all their attention on writing one book. And that's not what it was. I mean, Jeanne balances a lot of things. She's not just a really good worker at IT Cadre, but she's a leader. I mean, she led our project, which is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of extra hours and extra work and focus and attention on what we work on. On top of that, she has her son and her husband and snowboarding, and she just got a cat, and she had a puppy a couple of years ago who she was still training, and he was getting acclimated to the house. So she has a lot going on in her life, and to watch her fearlessly take this on. I mean, she didn't balk at it at all. She wasn't afraid of it. And it was really inspiring to see her face that and do it so gracefully. That was one thing. And another thing was, yeah, of course. Another thing is your tough skin. I mean, I know you're a tough person, but your thick skin throughout, especially the editing process. I remember you would come in and say, yeah, I got some feedback from my editor. He doesn't like 7 or 8 or 10 chapters or something. So I'm going to cut those out. What? You're going to do what? Or like, he doesn't like my main character, so I kind of have to scrap his whole storyline, or so, like drastic changes like that she would just take in stride. And I put myself in her position, and I think how I would take that really personally, but she never seemed to do that. It never seemed to affect her that way. She would take it in stride and just charge right through and make the changes and crank it out. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It is a very vulnerable and humbling experience, right? Jeanne, how did you do it? How did you put up with Alan and all his feedback for you?
Well, first of all, Alan's feedback was on point. I mean, he always gave constructive feedback. He provided the context for why he was giving the feedback he did. And that whole thing about my main character is completely true. I think we were like 12 chapters into our second set of revisions, and Alan was like, yeah, your main character is way too reactive. You need to define him better and make him more proactive. So basically, I rewrote the entire first part of the book, and it ended up being so much better. I never regretted taking any of Alan's advice. And he was echoing some of the feedback I was getting from some of my beta readers as well. So it was all really validating in some way. And I didn't want to give up. I wanted to see the process through. I wanted to give, both the Creator Institute and the NDP that, the opportunity to show me that the process worked, and it absolutely did. But it was a little bit discouraging from time to time. But I've learned, first from my father, and then from the Army, and then from, my husband and my family. You never give up. You never give up. You will hate yourself if you do.
Oh, wow. Well, sounds like a job well done, Alan. Nice work there, buddy. And I have to tell you, I remember the first bit of feedback I got on when I was writing my book, and I think I took Mary's approach, actually. I was mad. I was like, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. And after I read it 3 or 4 more times, I was like, yeah, I kind of did something weird there. I need to fix that. And, it's a humbling experience, and one that takes a little time to get over, but you get plenty of practice with it, because the whole process is about getting feedback along the way. And for those who might not know, beta readers, some of you, it sounds like we're some of those. That's someone you give the book to early on after it goes through a certain level of editing, right? You want it to look good, but to get this feedback that Jeanne was referring to find out, what stories are what's resonating with people and what's not, and this kind of thing. And it's really, really powerful exercise. Mary, last question for you here. What connections did, at least for me, what connections did you find between Jeanne and her story, Midgard?
So I'll preface this by saying I only got my copy of the book last week, so I'm only on chapter 3. But I mean, right off the bat, I could hear Jeanne's voice in this. That's what jumped out at me right away. It was so cool reading this, and I'm sucked into the story. I'm identifying with the characters and what's going on, but I'm hearing Jeanne write this. And I think part of that is because I've gotten to know her really well, but her voice just comes across so clearly. And definitely in Sam Richmond's character, I couldn't help but laugh out loud that like the first line, I think, pretty much of the first chapter in the tunnel, where he hears, "All right, Richmond, it's your turn. Are you ready?" And you hear him say, "Yes, asshole, I'm ready." But on the outside, he goes, "Yes, sir, I'm ready." That is so Jeanne. I mean, he has a really, really good poker face. Anybody that knows Jeanne knows that she is very poised and very well spoken and eloquent and very polite and professional. But if you really, really know Jeanne, you know that sometimes when she's smiling and saying, "Absolutely, yes, sir, you are correct," she's like, "Yeah, dumbass, I already said that 3 times." She would never say that. She doesn't even say, like, per my last email. She's so professional and so poised. And I got a kick out of that, because that screams Jeanne.
Mary, I think you could be Jeanne's secret inner voice. It sounds like
there's a reason I picked Mary to do this. I think she, we worked so closely together throughout me writing this book. I'm like, she's the person I want doing this, because she understands, she's seen it, she's witnessed it, she's been there side by side. So.
So fun. And isn't it interesting when you know the author and you can really hear their voice and hear their tone, their characters. I love that you were able to see that and understand it. By the way, Alan, I dropped a little note in here for you, Jeanne. Loved working with you. She was awesome throughout the entire process.
And so is Alan. And I can't read, I don't know what Alan's going to call it, but he's writing a book right now that we privately called, like, it's Engineers versus Zombies, but it sounds amazing. And I can't wait to see it when it comes out.
That is awesome. So if you do have questions for Jeanne or Mary about the journey, about the book, by all means, drop them in the chat. We're happy to field those now. Jeanne, did you have any other questions for Mary? Anything you wanted to get out of her? What do you think?
No, that's everything, unless she has something else she wants to add or ask.
The only other thing I had, in addition to that last bit of seeing Jeanne in the book, I read something in your author's note in the very beginning that struck me. I'm going to highlight it. I think it's a great line, and it very much captures who Jeanne is. And it's in the very end of her author's note when she's talking about why she wrote this book and how she she used her talent to tell this story, but also to bring people's attention to this issue about taking stewardship of the environment that we live in. But the very last thing you said was, "I hope you enjoy reading the story as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Then perhaps too, you will look more closely at your own talents and consider how you might best serve the interests of humankind and its fellow creatures on Earth." When I was reading that, you kind of expect it to go in a different way. You kind of expect it to go, "I hope you'll read this and think about how you too can, improve the planet or do your part to whatever." Jeanne isn't one to push her prerogative or to push her ideas on other people. It actually took me a while to even know what her political views were. She keeps that kind of stuff to herself, but she is one to push other people to be the very best that they can be and to achieve more. And that is, I'm so glad that came through so soon in the book, because that is one of your best qualities and what I love about you, Jeanne.
Oh, well, thanks, Mary. And I'm glad you picked up on that too. Because again, going back to everybody's got talents, not everybody gets the opportunity to express them. And if you do have that opportunity, I hope you take it. So thank you so much, Mary.
Wow, what a nice, very kind, thoughtful thought there, Mary. Thanks for sharing that. We do have a couple questions that popped up in the chat. Jeanne, you ready?
I am ready.
Timothy Sheehan, 10-year-old daughter who is watching with me. Hello. Did you ever get tired of writing and have to take a break?
It wasn't that I got tired. I actually enjoy the writing process. It was more that I would get discouraged because I would think, what I'm doing is terrible. And Eric and the Creator Institute do a great job, but they have this whole graphic that goes like, hey, I'm doing great. I suck. I'm terrible. And then you hit rock bottom and then you start back up again like, oh no, it's not that bad. Sometimes I did have to step away for a few days, or in one case, like a couple of weeks. I find that once I finish writing something, I hate it immediately. My initial response is to hate it and think it's terrible. But after I let it sit for 2 weeks and read it again, it seems much better. So I repeated that process throughout writing this book, throughout revisions, throughout editing, and having, both a developmental editor on the Creator Institute side and then a revisions editor on the New Degree Press side was helpful because it's not personal with them, right? They can tell you like, no, this is good. No, this is bad. And that helped keep pushing me along too, where I was getting true, constructive, valid feedback.
Wow. So good to take a break, to kind of sort of reflect on what you've written and come back to it maybe a little bit later, and having that support along the way. So important. Thank you for having that question, Miss Sheehan. Another one here from John Salvetti. He had a question. There are numerous places, people, and things. This is actually, I wrote a nonfiction book. This is what I would be curious to know. How do you come up with the names for everything?
Well, I don't know if I think Eric Duckworth was not here tonight, but some of it, what came from my beta readers where they're like, hey, your names suck. You need to come up with better names. I think Brian Scott, who I think is here tonight, had mentioned that a couple of times. So some of it was just names I like I've always liked the name Sam. I have always liked the name Miranda. Some of it is just names of people that I like. Some of it were nods. Some of them are nods to people I've met or encountered, or cultures I have encountered in the course of both my Army career and my civilian career. And some of it was, some of it's just like, okay, it's a place that I recognize. The terrorist group, the Neutronas, who are in the book, was the very first place that I ever got a library card was in Natrona County, Wyoming. So some of them are, esoteric references to my past as well.
Interesting. So there's a pretty deep answer there for you, John. I hope I certainly appreciate that. And, and I love the fact that you actually incorporated feedback from your beta readers to say specifically on that, hey, I need to find a new name here. Next question. We've got a couple more in the chat here. Please, we've got a few more minutes if you want to throw some in here. But Kim Compton, been busy on the chat tonight, Kim. When you were having to rewrite the main character early, did you find it easier or more difficult early on?
It was pretty difficult. It's funny because I had mapped out, or I kind of had done a character sketch for each of the characters, and the worst one was the main characters. And part of it was, as Alan very well pointed out, it was because he was so reactive. In order to make him proactive, I had to give him a personality. And in order to give him a personality, I had to align him with some sort of framework. So the one that I chose is the Enneagram. And for those of you who like personality tests out there, the Enneagram is amazing. And I decided after a few discussions with Alan that I was going to make him a type 5. And that helped shape him a little bit more and made it more fun to deal with him as I was reworking all of the chapters and making things more like, okay, what would a type 5 Enneagram do in this situation? How would they think? How would they react? How would they act? That was very helpful.
So you used literally a personality test that you've brought in from your day job into the character. I love that. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. A couple more in here. They're coming in hot. Robert Sweetman, when did you know that the book was complete? Ooh, I definitely have a thought on this one, but I'll certainly defer to you here. Was there a word count goal, or what was the end game for you?
The short answer is that it's not over yet because I'm working on the sequel. The long answer is, so part of the Creator Institute process is that you have to complete your manuscript if you want it to be eligible for publication. So I knew I needed to have an ending. So, and I knew, I already kind of knew in my head what that ending was. Like I knew what's the end of this part of Sam's story. Sam is the main character, was going to be. However, when I started working on the editing side, first of all, the acquiring editor at New Degree Press, for those of you that haven't been through the publication process, when you submit a manuscript for publication, it has to go to an acquiring editor who decides if they're even going to publish it or not. The acquiring editor basically made a note to the effect that the last third of my book really needed some work because the story started to fall apart, and she was 100% right because I hadn't spent as much time on that part of the book when I was drafting the manuscript. So in the course of working with Alan, my revisions editor, we realized I had a lot of material and I had a deadline and I needed to make a decision about where the book was going to end. And we decided that instead, there was so much material that it was probably better as one book or as two books instead of one, which is why the sequel is already at least partially drafted. But he and I worked together, and we stopped at what felt like a natural break in the story, like where we could leave it on a cliffhanger, but also complete certain aspects of the plot. So I think, I don't know that I personally came to that conclusion by myself. It was in the course of getting some beta reader feedback and working with Alan to find that natural stopping point. And when we made the decision, it actually felt right intuitively. It was more of an intuitive thing than a left brain sort of reaction.
Interesting. What a fascinating answer. And I love what I hear throughout that story is just the amount of collaboration and feedback and change that you had to make and evolution of the book as you went. That's really, really cool. And I'll share one other nugget with Robert on this, particularly on the nonfiction side. One of the things that is shared with you throughout the training is what average books look like: size, number of chapters, word count, this kind of thing. So in a nonfiction book, my universe, typically it's around 40,000 words, 12 chapters. Now that I've said that out loud, go pick up any nonfiction book on your shelf and tell me if it's not 11, 12, 13 chapters and around 225 pages. That's very, very typical for a nonfiction book. Fiction books tend to be about 10 to 15, 20,000 words longer. But to give you an idea, a couple more questions in here. We'll wrap it up, unless you had any more for Jeanne, Mary. Any from your end?
Questions from me too, Jeanne?
Yes, we can jump to the chat as well. We've got a few more in here.
Yeah, let's jump to the chat because I do have a question, but they asked first.
Okay. Marion Grace, if you were starting over, how would you do it differently, Jeanne?
Oh man, 2020 being hindsight, if I'd known how much work this was going to be on the front end, I would have probably waited till I retired before I started to do it. But I also realized, it's like having kids. There's never a good time to have children. And, I could be dead by the time I retire. So there was really a limited window of opportunity. I think that the universe was telling me to start writing this book. So I did. The other thing that I would have done differently, I don't know that I could have done it differently, but I think what I'm going to try to do for the sequel is set aside a committed time to write. I really didn't have that on the first run of this, and so I never really got into a writing rhythm. It was catch as catch can, or the machine gun burst method. But I found when I had focused writing sessions, I tended to do better. So I would do that differently. I would set aside, some time during the week that's the same time during the week, every week, to be able to write.
Yeah, that's one of the things we do to help with that is help you create a traction plan. So maybe refining that a little bit. I love that. So speaking of sequels, Shane had a question in here for you. How many books are going to be in the series, do you think? What are you planning on?
So as I envision the story right now, it will be a trilogy. It will be a total of 3 books. So the next book would obviously be the sequel to Midgard. And then there is a plan for a book I'm calling it Life After Midgard, or Colony, if that's any indication about where the sequel might be going. But yes, there's about 3 books planned in the series.
Love it. And one more question, and we'll open it up to Mary if she has any. We'll wrap it up here. But from Elsa, who's been hot in the comments, the chat tonight, was the tunnel always the first chapter, or did things move around as you got feedback?
Oh my goodness, that is a great question. And I'm sure Alan is chuckling to himself right now. The tunnel was not the first chapter. I think the original first chapter was like where chapter 5 or 6 is of the book now. And when I had to go back and rebuild the main character, one of Alan's pieces of advice was like, well, drop him in the middle of the action. Action was not something I was good at writing about. I could think about it, but I didn't feel like writing about it. It's like, drop him in the middle of, those tests he had to go through that you mentioned, in chapter 5 or chapter 6. So that was the genesis of putting the tunnel there. And the inspiration behind the tunnel was actually Elsa, since you asked, was partially the indoor obstacle course test at West Point, which all of us who have graduated from West Point know that one. But it was also based off of a Royal Engineer test. One of my British friends who was a Royal Engineer in the Royal Military or the Royal Army had to go through that sounded absolutely horrific. So I combined those two. And the tunnel, in addition to being a very clear symbol of, being born or being reborn or, is about rites of passage and how we go through rites of passage at different points in our life. The IOCT being a big rite of passage for West Point graduates, for example, and how we have to do these hard things to either prove to ourselves or prove to our cohort that we're ready to move on to the next biggest thing.
Wow. And there, Elsa beat you to it. She put the acronym in the chat there.
Indoor obstacle course test, which is still done at West Point today. And is still every bit as much of a pain and as it was back in the day. So
that is awesome. That was all the questions in the chat. Mary, did you have one more for Jeanne, or we can let you go and say thank you for being on tonight?
I do. I have kind of a nerdy question, but I know Jeanne will appreciate it. I'm a big fan of fiction. I love fantasy, and Jeanne and I have a couple of books that we both really love. One is, of course, Harry Potter. And I've read a lot and I've listened to a lot of J.K. Rowling's interviews. And I know she's talked a lot about her connection to her characters that she's developed and how close of a connection she feels towards these fictional people. And I'm wondering if you feel that way towards Sam Richmond or any of the characters in your story. Are you going to miss them when the books end?
Well, I don't think so again, what I have envisioned for the story is that none of them are dead at the end of it. Or sorry, none of the main characters are dead, but I don't want to be too much of a spoiler alert there. I think the one that I'm going to miss most, who isn't developed as well in this book and will get more development in the next book, is Miranda Richmond, who is Sam's mother. She is, and if they, one of the things, and again, spoiler alert, one of the exercises that Alan had me run through is, who's pulling the strings? Who is the puppet master behind each chapter, behind each scene? And who's the puppet master behind the book? And I will tell those of you that are here, although I'm not going to put it anywhere else, that Miranda Richardson is the puppet master. And it doesn't come through in Midgard, but it will come through in the course of its sequel. And yet there is a third book as well. So she is the one I'm going to miss.
Powerful question there, Mary. Well done. One more comment just jumped to the chat here from Linda. We can't wait for Jeanne's cousin Kelly to read this book since she is our resident sci-fi addict. Yahoo, Jeanne. Congrats. I love it.
So Kelly's in the acknowledgments too, and rightly so, because going to the Strand bookstore in New York City with her a few years ago, I had a vision of doing a book signing there one day, which is still one of my ambitions, to do a book signing at the Strand in New York City. But Kelly's the one that took me there, and my friend B had taken me there like a few years before that. I think B may be here tonight as well. It's just this incredible bookstore in the middle of New York City, and there's so much history and this feel of creativity inside of it. And Kelly's taking me there was really helpful in getting me started on this journey.
So cool. Well, Mary, we're going to wrap up here. I'll let you drop off. And if you want to hang out in the green room for just a minute, we'll join you in just a second and we'll wrap up here. But thank you so much for joining us. Your great questions. And I love the last one there.
So happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks,
Jeanne.
Thank you.
So Jeanne has 2 more prizes to give away, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the idea is to draw them randomly from people in the chat. Is that right?
Yep, that is correct. I'm doing that right now.
So this is time for the big giveaway, ladies and gentlemen.
If you to see where my cursor lands.
If you haven't pulled up, put a note in the chat yet. So these are 2. One is a $100 gift card to the Birch Street Bookstore, and one is the bottle of Petite Petite Verdot from Casanel Vineyards
Casano Vineyards. That is correct.
in Loudoun County, Virginia. I think Virginia is now the 5th largest wine producing state in the country, if I have my numbers
Something
right.
like that. And I think that at last count, there's 41 vineyards in Loudoun County alone.
Wow, that's incredible.
All right. So the first one that came up was Rob Sweetman.
Rob Sweetman.
So if you'd let me know in the chat if you'd prefer the gift card or the wine. If you're in California, I might have to give you the gift card, though, because they don't let me ship wine to California. So
Congratulations, Rob Sweetman. And I'm going to put your, while you're looking through that, I'm going to put this back up. Midgard's available now wherever you buy books online. Jeanne is doing the 99-cent ebook for the next week or so. So go and get your copy and be sure to leave her a review if you enjoy it. I know I just got my copy this week and I've been starting to read it. I've really enjoyed it so far, Jeanne.
all right. And the second one is one of my beta readers, Brian Scott.
Brian Scott, well done. And so a gift card to birchtreebookstore.com or thebookshop.org and a bottle of wine from Casanel Vineyards. If you want to learn more about Jeanne, go visit her website, JeanneHullGodfroy.com, or look her up on LinkedIn at Jeanne Godfroy and Instagram as well. Jeanne, what an amazing accomplishment. I think Mary couldn't have got a better description of the journey than what we heard from Mary here tonight. That was really awesome to hear that.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
And I think we had one, if you love sci-fi, if you love the planet, go out and get a copy, go out and gift it to a friend. That's something you can do right now as well on Amazon, which is really cool. And Jeanne has one last offer for you. Jeanne, want to throw that one at the group here about book reviews?
Yes. So one last offer. I really would appreciate candid reviews. I know I said that a couple of times. If you write a review on Amazon or Goodreads, just let me know that you've done it. And I'm going to do another drawing on November 1st for another gift card to the bookstore or a bottle of wine, your choice, for somebody who writes a candid review on Amazon. I already know who've put the original reviews that are on Amazon on there, but again, it doesn't matter if it's Amazon or Goodreads. Write a review. It could be a 1-star review, if that's how you really feel about the book. I don't care. I'll enter you in the drawing and I'll make the announcement on November 1st.
That is awesome. I just put the Amazon link in the chat. If those want to grab your copy tonight, go do it. That is awesome, Jeanne. So excited for you. And congratulations again on getting this incredible book out there in the world. Any last thoughts for our listeners out there?
All I have to say is thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. This has been an incredible journey. And if you want to learn more about it, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to share it.
So amazing, Jeanne. I can't wait to finish reading it myself. I want to thank everyone for asking me to host your launch here tonight, or one of your many events you have coming up. I think you said your big goal for this year was to get a book reading at Strand. Is that right? That's a fun one.
I don't know if that happens this year. I mean, I've got some other book reading. So my goal this year is to make enough from the first book to finance the sequel. That's really my goal. So for 2022 into 2023.
And books are best sold through word of mouth, ladies and gentlemen. So go get your copy, tell your friends about it, and check out Jeanne's book. Here we go. Here's that word again, Jeanne. It seems maybe this is going to have to be in your subtitle here. Rockstar and badass are understatements. Congratulations.
Thanks, Lauren.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, congratulations again, Jeanne.
Thanks,
Great
Gina.
to see you. Lots of fun notes in the chat here. Linda, a lot of folks here. Yeah, Gina put one in there. Congratulations. Can't wait to read it. Love your insights. Beautiful. I love all the questions we got about, the fiction journey. That was really fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Jeanne, great to see you. Thank you to everyone joining us here tonight. Be sure to subscribe to the Creator Community channel on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts out there, and feel free to reach out to me as well. But thanks for joining us tonight. I'm your host, John Saunders. Keep creating.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.